The dollar is about to collapse. The dollar is being devalued. The dollar is not going to be the world reserve capital coming soon. These stories and more are echoing all over the internet. And what should you believe? Is it true? Is it really going to happen? And when? Well, the problem is this is news, and sometimes you have to be able to sift between the news, and what's real. So in this video, we're going to follow up on a previous video talking about could the dollar collapse? Now, in that video, I set up and I said, there's a lot of things, a lot of warnings that are out there, but I don't think that the dollar is going to collapse anytime soon. So I've got to follow up. Let's go see what other news is out there in regards to that. And we'll start off here. Calls to move away from the US dollar are growing, and the concerns are there. But the greenback is still king. Look at where we go in the world. You can pull US currency out of your wallet, and more than likely, they will take your US dollar, as opposed to taking the yuan or any other currency that is out there. We are still the world reserve currency at this particular point in time. Now, other news from the Wall Street Journal. The air has come out of the dollar, and this was recent as of today. Decade-long rally leaves U.S. currency as much as 15% overvalued. Now, this is from Goldman Sachs, coming from Goldman Sachs as we go down. Investors are betting that the U.S. currency has further to fall as the Federal Reserve nears the end of its most aggressive program interest rate increases. Wait a minute. Who says that they're at the end of this, number one? And we still look at, since the 1980s, also weighing on the dollar, concerns over the banking system and the potential, this is big, U.S. debt default. If we default on our debt, folks, that could be really, 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 really bad for the dollar. But you know what else has gone on? Even in the atmosphere of raising interest rates, people are still spending money. The dollar is still strong. The dollar across the globe will still get you a lot compared to their own currency. So the dollar may be looking like it's being devalued. It may look like the BRICS countries are coming together and they're garnering some support and they're garnering some momentum behind the scenes. But keep in mind, China's been trying this for the last 20 years to usurp us as the currency, the world reserve currency. Another one, the yuan is not a threat to the US dollar, and this is important, because China is not a predictable or reliable market. So you know about the BRICS countries. You got Brazil, you got Russia, you got India, you got China, and you got South Africa. And more countries are jumping on board the bandwagon so that they can eventually form an alternative currency to the US dollar. Why is that? Because a lot of the countries, some of the countries that are trying to get on board are tired of the US using the power of the dollar to put sanctions on them when they're not doing the things that they should be doing. They're tired of it. So outside of that, they're looking for another means to go outside of whatever sanctions we put on them by utilizing an alternative currency. We put sanctions on Russia for oil. What did Russia do? Russia said, fine, we're going to sell oil really cheap to a whole bunch of other people, and those people are going, man, that's cheap oil. It may be dirtier, but it's cheap oil. We're going to go to Russia. So those sanctions on the oil didn't work out as well. But we do the same thing. We put sanctions on countries when they don't want to do the right things. And for the most part, it keeps them in line. They're tired of being in line, and they feel that we're using the dollar as a weapon against them. Well, sort of, kind of we are, in order to get them to do what they need to do. How about this one? U.S. dollar gains as inflation data backs Fed rate hike. The Fed is going to, and this is where I say, it's short-lived, or that they're going to stop doing this anytime soon. The Fed is very adamant about getting inflation down to 2%. In order to do that, they're going to have to continue to raise interest rates. Now, it's not going to be forever. That's fine. But As we start to go back into quantitative easing, then the dollar is going to get a little weaker, and we'll see how that works out as well. Now, talking about the dollar and alternatives to the dollar, this is a story that really catches my attention, and I'm going to still do more on it. The US dollar could go digital. Now, not only the US dollar, this is globally. I think a lot of countries out there are experimenting with digital currency. I don't like it, especially what they have control of from a monetary perspective. They have full control over the dollar. Think of it from this perspective. If I go to the store and I want to buy something, I take a piece of paper out of my pocket, which is my dollars, whatever it is, it's perceived, it's got a high perceived value. I go and buy it. The government doesn't know what I'm doing. If I'm doing that with a digital currency, now the government knows exactly what you're doing with the digital currency. The bad thing about these things, if the government, and I'm not going down the conspiracy theory lane, but if the government wants us to stop doing or buying certain things, they could restrict your ability to purchase certain things because they now have control over that digital currency. It's called CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency. Now, as I mentioned, it's not us, just only us. As technology continues to revolutionize the way people live, work, and spend, central banks around the globe have kicked off efforts to reinvent their local currencies for the digital era. Now, this gives all of those countries whose currency is not as strong as the dollar the ability to bolster the strength of their local currency by having control of what people can or cannot do. Now, the United States is the latest to signal urgency in researching the potential digital version of its dollar via the central bank digital currency, or CBDC. So it's interesting as we go through the story or the journey of possibly the dollar being devalued across the globe. It's still king. It is still the reserve currency around the globe. But if the smaller countries who are looking into this, they can bolster the strength of their currencies by having the control on their currencies. Again, for me, this is more of a developing story. I'm going to do a lot more research on this and bring more videos to your attention in regards to the CBDC. So, these are the stories that are out there. Are they out there to scare you, to pull you into this whole trap of the dollar is going to collapse and be devalued? So let's take a look at it from a VectorVest perspective. I've got the two currencies that I want to have up here, the UDN, which looks at the bearish side of the dollar, and I also have the UUP, which looks at the bullish side of the dollar. I'm looking at I'm going to put this on a 10-year graph. This is the dollar over the last 10 years. It's sputtered around from 2015 to about 2021. Still, we are the world reserve currency. Coming out of COVID, the dollar just went way, way high over the last 10 years, the highest value on the dollar. Now, it's interesting that as we hit that high level, the stories are now coming out to help push the dollar back down. But again, it is the number one currency. We are still the world reserve currency. Going right now, these stories are coming out. It's affecting the dollar, but we're also looking at what's going on with interest rates, what's going on with a possible recession, a lot of different things, inflation. All of these things are tying up into the power of the dollar. Dollar right now is sitting in a little bit of a channel, but coming off a level of support sitting at about 27.17, and this is on the UUP, coming down, but we did get to lows back here in 2014. Coming into COVID, we had another little level here. And we are just bouncing, but look at the nice run up. But again, as we've run up, the news has come out more and more about the BRICS countries, more and more about the devaluing of the dollar, and boom, it's been affected. But still, looking over the last 10 years, still higher than it was 10 years ago. So keeping all of that in mind, folks, the stories are out there, the news is out there, and the worries are out there. But as I look at it from a VectorVest perspective, looking at what's going on in the market, looking at the value of the dollar where it was 10 years ago to where it is now, even though it's pulling back, it's still higher than it was at that time. I think that China being a country that is a very volatile country in the way that think about some of the countries that are in the BRICS. None of them are really stable countries. If you can't be a stable country, how are you going to be able to garner a stable currency? Think about that for a second. So with all of the news that's going on, these countries that are volatile countries coming together, and the more volatile countries, these are all countries that are all volatile all over the place. Think about what that's going to have, what kind of effect that's going to have on the currency that is founded by way as an alternative currency. Folks, take the information, do with it as you may. The news is out there, the scare tactics are out there, but I'm giving you the truth. We do the work, you reap the rewards. If you're brand new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button because we will be doing more videos on the CBDC. And if you like the video, hit the like button. Let me know it was worth your time to be here today and share the content. We need new people out there to see what we're doing here at VectorVest. And the only way that that can happen is with your help. Folks, this video is over. And until the next time, see ya.